Let's speak now to African affairs analyst Izak Khomo, who shares his thoughts about the latest developments. Dr. Khomo, very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. So, is it surprising, this development of postponing this weekend's long-awaited peace talks, so particularly the fact that no other date has been set as yet?
Well, thanks for having me. Well, well, I would say that I won't say it's surprising, but I mean to say we should hear the reasons why Uhuru Kenyata is pulled out of the talks, are not being pulled out as postponed. So basically, that is a big question. I mean to say the ball is in the court of the AU. If Uhuru Kenyata is not available, they should get somebody else.
I mean, we're being told that the concerns are logistical. What exactly do you understand that to mean?
I don't know. I mean to say that if it's logistics, it's a matter of flying and getting to a plane and flying over. There's nothing logistical about that. I think there are daily flights between Johannesburg and Nairobi. Most airlines coming from Europe, they stop by Nairobi and they fly here. So basically, we have got to know more about what is actually happening. That logistical question does not come well. So, but we've got to wait. We cannot start speculating now as what's happening.
I understand I'm asking you to speculate, but this would have been the first time ever for the warring parties to have met since the ceasefire broke down in late August. This is my understanding. So what do you think is happening behind the scenes?
Well, behind the scene, you see, the important thing is this, that it's the breakdown of the talks is not due to any of the two protagonist forces. The thing is due to one of the people who are supposed to bring them together. Now, that in itself, it actually, there's a lot which people can speculate. But one thing I could say is this, that the selection of Uhuru Kenyata, a person who comes from the region, the conflict region, that was not a wise decision, because with the Horn of Africa, with all talks which are taking place there, what has been noticed is that the mediators, they are not neutral. To be a mediator, you've got to be neutral, but in the Horn of Africa, most of the mediation is done by people who have got an interest in what is in the cases that are taking place. So basically, the AU should have actually gone further afield and have got somebody who's away from that conflict area or conflict zone. That is the Horn of Africa. And they should have been one of the mediators. Now, I think that is the fault of the AU in actually choosing a mediator.
What would conflict, if at all, the former Kenyan president, or what would be his interest in the mediation of this crisis?
Well, I won't talk say much about the whole thing, but I mean, you've actually got to go and look at the Ethiopian situation. The Ethiopian question, basically, it's a very complex question, and it's not an issue of personalities. It's an issue of state formation. The issue at stake, which many people are not aware of, is actually the survival of Ethiopia as a nation state, or as a nation, or the state as it is. That is a major thing. And the issues which are involved are constitutional. So basically, with this type of mediation, you've got to get people who are really, number one, really neutral. And number two, the people who are actually very much involved and they know the issues which are involved and have got an interest in actually seeing a solution to this whole problem. The Ethiopian constitution was very weak and highly faulted. That was there from the time when it was established. And when it was established basically by the TPLF, which is the Tigray People's Liberation Force. I mean, they were the dominant force there. And they put up a constitution which actually allowed them to be a dominant force within the whole Ethiopian federated state. With the federated state of Ethiopia, all the federated state, not all, I mean to say the federated state, and there are only few of them which are federated, the others associated, the federated state had the right of secession. If they wanted, they could have walked out. And again, you find that with the Ethiopian state, each and every state amongst the recognized states had the right to have their own armies. So you find that the Tigrayans had an army, the Amaras had an army, and the other states had their own armies. And then on top of that, you had the national army. So you find that in this case of this war, it was actually a Tigrayan army which was not satisfied with talks that were going on towards the formation or towards the ironing out of constitutional issues, that the Tigrayan army decided to actually go for a military solution, whereby it was a putsch. They attacked the Ethiopian army, which was based in Tigray. And not only that, within Tigray, they saw the Ethiopian army had its biggest armory. Most of the weapons of the Ethiopian army were based in Tigray. The Tigrayan forces took over those ammunitions and they killed non-Tigrayan army officers and fighters and army and soldiers. And then from there, the war started. Now that is an issue that people do not talk about. Basically, the war was started by the Tigrayans as a way of grabbing power, and that has failed. So you find that the Ethiopian matter is very complex. It's an issue of the formation of the nation state and institution of the nation state. So you really got to get people who are clued up into it. I don't think Kenyata is a person who's really up to speed as far as that is concerned.
But I'd imagine just in terms of also the greater issue of the participants of the talks, because I believe that the TPLF leader, Debretsion Gebremichael himself saw this as an important issue beyond, the issue of the organization, etc., etc. Do you share these sentiments?
Well, beyond the organization of African Unity, what other organizations?
I mean, I'm saying
those.
Is it talking about the
United Nations or
I said that Debretsion Gebremichael, the TPLF leader, raised the issue of who will be participating in the talks as something that is pivotal before they agree to go ahead with it. Do you share the sentiments that this is a major stickler point as well, beyond the organization or the logistical issues around where and how the talks are going to take place?
Basically, the Tigrayan, Gebremichael, whatever his name is, he actually has nothing against the selection of the mediators. The issue of logistics, it comes from one of the mediators. It's not the Tigrayans who are saying that they've got logistics problems. If I got you right, it is Uhuru Kenyata. Now, basically, it is actually very unprofessional and on the part of Uhuru Kenyata, showing that basically the man is not serious. This is a very sensitive issue, and him being called as one of the mediators, he should have put aside whatever it was that he was dealing with to come and help and solve this key issue. But that just shows the maturity of the man. Sorry to say so, but it's what it is. Let's call a stone a stone. It shows the seriousness of the man. When I talk about the man, I'm talking about Uhuru Kenyata. And personally, I thought that he was not the best candidate for those talks. I would have really liked to have seen people like somebody from Algeria. Now, those people are much more mature and they know African issues, being that they've been trying to solve African issues for a long time. They're the people involved in solving the conflict between Ethiopia and Eritrea, where they had an agreement which was agreed, but then it could not be implemented. And eventually, Prime Minister Abiy has actually sort of implemented it. And that has brought peace between these two warring countries. Basically, it was Eritrea and Ethiopia.
All right, I'm afraid we're going to leave it.
And it was people or mediators of that caliber who are needed.
All right, thank you very much. Izak Khomo is African Affairs